Once upon a time, in the heart of a bustling city filled with honking cars, glowing billboards, crowded sidewalks, and endless movement, there lived a bright and talented teenager named Mia. The city never seemed to sleep, and neither did her dreams. From the window of her small apartment, she would often watch the golden sunrise spill across the rooftops and imagine herself standing on a grand stage somewhere, singing her heart out while the world listened in silence. Mia was like any other girl her age in many ways. She loved music, collected little notebooks filled with song lyrics, laughed at silly videos her best friends sent her late at night, and spent hours imagining her future. She had a voice that carried warmth and emotion, a voice that could turn an ordinary moment into something magical. But there was one thing that made her feel painfully different from everyone else: her acne. It had started gradually, just a few small pimples on her forehead when she was younger. At first, she had ignored them, thinking they would disappear like everyone said they would. But they didn't. Instead, they spread across her cheeks, her chin, and sometimes even her neck, leaving behind redness and marks that no amount of face wash or home remedies seemed to erase. Over time, those blemishes became more than just a skin condition. They became the lens through which she believed the world saw her. At school, whispers followed her like shadows. "Look, it's Acne Girl." The nickname had begun as a careless joke, but it stuck, clinging to her identity in a way that felt impossible to escape. Every time she heard it, even when it was spoken softly, it felt like a tiny crack forming in her heart. Mia stopped tying her hair back the way she used to love. Instead, she let it fall forward like a curtain, hoping it would hide her face. She spent long minutes in front of the mirror every morning, layering makeup carefully, only to feel her confidence crumble the moment she stepped into the harsh fluorescent lights of her classroom. She avoided eye contact. She laughed less. She spoke only when necessary. The girl who used to sing while walking down the street now kept her voice locked inside her chest. At home, her room was her sanctuary. There, she would sit by the window with her guitar and sing softly to herself, her voice filling the small space with a kind of honesty she never allowed the outside world to see. In those moments, she wasn't Acne Girl. She was just Mia. Her mother often paused outside her door, listening with a gentle smile and misty eyes, knowing her daughter carried a light she had not yet learned to see in herself. The only person who truly saw Mia, all of her, was her best friend, Emma. Emma had known Mia since they were little girls who shared crayons and traded lunch snacks. She remembered the fearless Mia who used to volunteer to sing at school assemblies without a second thought. She remembered the way Mia's laughter could brighten an entire room. And she refused to let her forget that girl. One afternoon, as they sat together under their favorite tree in the school courtyard, Mia kept her head down, scrolling through her phone as if it were the most fascinating thing in the world. Emma nudged her gently. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" Mia asked without looking up. "Hiding." Mia forced a small shrug. "I'm not hiding." Emma didn't argue. She simply reached over and tilted Mia's chin upward so their eyes met. "You are not your skin," she said softly. "You're the girl with the most beautiful voice I've ever heard." Before Mia could respond, an announcement echoed through the courtyard speakers. The school's annual talent show was coming. The word sent a ripple through the students. Excited chatter filled the air. For Mia, time seemed to stop. The talent show had once been her favorite event of the year. She used to imagine herself standing beneath the stage lights, singing to a silent audience, her voice carrying her far beyond the walls of the school. But that was before. Before the whispers. Before the nickname. Before the mirrors became her enemy. "I could never," she murmured. Emma turned to her immediately. "Yes, you could." "No," Mia said, shaking her head. "I won't be able to stand there. Everyone will just stare at my face." Emma's expression softened, but her voice remained steady. "Then close your eyes and sing. Make them listen instead. Those words stayed with Mia long after they went home. That night, she sat on her bed, staring at the talent show audition form on her desk. Her heart pounded as if it were trying to speak for her. She imagined herself on stage, the fear, the lights, the audience. Then she imagined something else. She imagined singing. Really singing. The way she did when she was alone. Her hand trembled as she picked up a pen. Before she could talk herself out of it, she wrote her name. The day of the audition arrived too quickly. Backstage, Mia's hands were cold and clammy. Her breathing came in shallow bursts. She could hear other students chatting confidently, laughing, practicing their acts. She wanted to run. But then she spotted Emma in the hallway, giving her 2 thumbs up and an exaggerated smile. Mia stepped onto the stage. The auditorium looked enormous from that perspective, rows and rows of empty seats, the judges seated in front, their faces unreadable. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure the microphone would pick it up. She closed her eyes. And she sang. At first, her voice trembled, but as the melody wrapped around her like a familiar embrace, something inside her shifted. She forgot about her skin. She forgot about the judges. She forgot about everything except the music. Her voice rose, clear and powerful, carrying emotion that had been locked inside her for years. When she finished, there was a moment of complete silence. Then applause filled the auditorium. Real applause. Not polite clapping, but the kind that comes from being moved. Mia opened her eyes, stunned. For the first time in a long time, she smiled without thinking about how she looked. Weeks passed in a blur of rehearsals, homework, and moments of doubt. There were still cruel comments in the hallways. There were still days when she wanted to quit. But each time, Emma reminded her why she had started. Because you love to sing, she would say. And that's bigger than fear. On the night of the talent show, the auditorium was packed. The air buzzed with excitement. Backstage, Mia stood in front of a mirror. Her acne was still there. The makeup hadn't hidden it completely. For a moment, the old fear returned. Then she remembered something. All those nights in her room. All those songs. All those dreams. She took a deep breath and wiped away the extra layer of foundation she had been about to apply. "This is me," she whispered. When her name was announced, she walked onto the stage with steady steps. The spotlight found her. The music began. This time, she didn't close her eyes. She looked out at the audience and sang. Her voice was stronger than it had ever been. Filled with confidence, vulnerability, and truth. The audience leaned forward, drawn in not by perfection, but by authenticity. By the final note, the entire auditorium was on its feet. The applause thundered around her like a wave. And Mia felt something she had not felt in years. Freedom. In the days that followed, everything changed. Not her skin. But the way people saw her, and more importantly, the way she saw herself. Students who had once laughed at her now stopped her in the hallway to say, "You were amazing." Teachers praised her courage. The nickname disappeared, replaced by something new. Mia, the singer. But the biggest change wasn't in their words. It was in her reflection. She no longer avoided mirrors. She no longer hid behind her hair. She began to walk through the halls with her head held high, not because her acne was gone, but because her shame was. Mia continued to sing. At school events, at community gatherings, anywhere she could. Her voice grew stronger, but so did her heart. Younger students began approaching her, sharing their own insecurities, their own fears. And Mia would smile and say, "You are more than what you see in the mirror." She had become something she never expected. Not just a performer. But a symbol. A reminder that confidence is not the absence of flaws, but the acceptance of them. Years later, when she stood on a real stage in a real concert hall, looking out at a sea of faces illuminated by soft lights, she remembered the girl who once hid behind her hair. And she whispered a quiet thank you to her. Because that girl had found the courage to sing. And in doing so, she had discovered her true voice. Mia's journey from insecurity to confidence became a story told to others who felt invisible, who felt defined by something they could not control. Her life became proof that our worth is not measured by appearance, but by the courage to be seen, the strength to keep going, and the passion that lives inside us. And every time she stepped onto a stage, she carried that message with her, not in words, but in every note she sang. Because she was never just Acne Girl. She was Mia. And she always had been.